I can't believe the fond today. Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. This is Joe, and joining me today is
Self-professed U2 lover, Cody.
giant U2 fan Cody over there in the co pilot seat.
Love me some spy planes.
Just gonna be
Shout out to Gary Powers. Sorry about that whole Soviet Union thing.
just gonna be the two of us today. We'll get into today's subject a little bit, but before we do that, as we have been doing, wanted to very briefly talk about some other things we've been up to recently. I only really have one thing this week. My wife and I watched a series that I think hit HBO Max. I think it was on HBO and it's on HBO Max, I think last year, called Mayor of Easttown.
Never heard of it.
It's Mayor, Mare, not Mayor, Mayor of
Oh, okay.
Easttown. Yeah, it's fun. But it's a sort of crime mystery series starring Kate Winslet.
What?
Yeah,
We live in wacky times these days.
I know, like it's weird. It's set in Pennsylvania, and
Sure.
through the miracle of this series, I learned that apparently people, at least in certain parts of Pennsylvania, have really weird accents.
Oh,
Which, like, Kate Winslet got a bunch of acclaim and awards for her performance in this show, but
interesting.
it's one of those series where, I mean, it's not too spoilery, I think, to say that it starts with a murder, and Kate Winslet plays a police detective in this town where, like, everybody knows everybody, and there are many twists and turns, and over the course of the season, every turns out everybody has deep dark secrets that come to light. But it's just, I mean, really well written, well acted show. I definitely did not see some of the final twists coming. So
Is it just a limited series and it's over?
um as of now, I did read that the creator of the show said that he would be willing to do a season 2 if Kate Winslet wanted to come back. But it is very much like a self-contained season. There's just one story arc that's wrapped up by the end of it. So whether or not there is a second season, at least that story is complete. But yeah, it's a really good show, so recommend checking it out. Cody, you been up to anything?
I guess I mostly have been extremely swamped with school because I'm back teaching again now, and the kids have both been back in school for this past week, and so I had open house night with parents, and I went to their open house nights with parents last week. I got one more coming up, and it's just been meeting. Um, so it's been a lot, but in general, I have had a little bit of time. I'm still starting to go through the video game Fire Emblem Three Hopes, which has been progressing kind of neat. They keep building things. It's amazing how much stuff they're throwing at you, though. Like, you do one thing and they're like, here's these 2 new systems in the game you should probably be good at. And you're like, whoa, I haven't even mastered the last 17 yet. But it is kind of nice. I didn't realize till a couple times ago when I played it that you can replay missions. And so that's a good way to like level up the other characters, because instead of like 1 or 4 on your team, you're literally controlling like probably 15 people, I would say, on your party.
Wow.
So it's like so and so's 10 levels behind, but you can buy
Is
experience
that I mean,
also, which is nice.
is that just like a straight RPG, or like what
No, it's
genre is
it's
it?
uh it's Musu, so it's Dynasty Warriors, and
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
it's mixed with like this one. They had a Fire Emblem Warriors game that came out a long time ago, and that was just basically straight Dynasty Warriors. But this one, they took all the characters and the plot lines from Fire Emblem Three Houses, which if we do another podcast, you're gonna see that somewhere near my favorite games of all time, PS.
Wow.
And this is kind of a spin-off on that, but it's weird because they've like modified the story, so the person you played as the protagonist in the last one is now the villain in this one. Like, it's an alternate history almost, but then expands different characters' stories in different ways. So
Wow.
it's been kind of cool. And then the second thing, I guess, which I don't do a lot of sadly, is read. I've been checking out a couple books we have. We're gonna make a choice for a new book for curriculum in English this year, and I've been reading Everything Sad is Untrue by Danielle Nayeri. And it's a very interesting, biting satire of someone from Iran who moved to, I want to say, Oklahoma. It's kind of
Huh.
autobiographical, but it's really it's an interesting take on how it is to be a foreigner to come to America. Very sardonically written, but it's
Sounds
good. I don't know if
interesting.
that's going to be the one we pick or not yet, but we're going to pick probably in like a week here. So I have to get through that, and I have to get through one more yet as well. So yay!
Sounds great.
That's what I should have been doing instead of listening to 14 albums of U2. Oops, spoiler.
I mean, what? I
Spoiler.
don't know what you're complaining about. All this work you're doing. I mean, everyone knows you're overpaid as a teacher. So
That's true. So true.
anyway, well, Cody, I mean, we've both kind of tipped the hat a little bit. Tipped our hand, I guess I should say. Today's topic, we are going to be talking about perhaps the best known Irish rock band in the world and one of the biggest bands in the world over the past 40 or so years. U2. Um, Gonna start off talking a little bit about our own personal relationship with the band and their music, and end up discussing our top 10 U2 songs. I'm kind of curious. I want to hand it off to you to start, Cody, because I think that you have a very different relationship and feeling about U2 coming into this than I do. So what's your history, and I guess what were your feelings about the band prior to cramming for this podcast?
Yeah, so I can remember the third grade talent show at my school we had going on, and like halfway through it, Bono came in and said, are you charging admission for this? And we said no, because it was just a school activity. And he's like, you could be donating money to homeless people in Africa. And we were like, what? It's just a school production. And then he proceeded to take the stage and take over and just sing himself. So it was interesting. But
I mean, that sounds amazing.
yeah, right. So yeah, anyway, no, obviously that didn't happen. It was fourth grade, but we'll move on here. My impressions of U2. So I am a huge 80s guy, and so therefore I know most of their material. Well, I shouldn't even say most of their material. Their hits from the 80s, I guess I should say, is kind of where I began my I don't want to say love affair, but I greatly enjoyed their stuff that they put out then. All the big hits, and you can probably think in your head of all the 80s songs. So I enjoyed the music there. As they got into the 90s, it was kind of hit or miss with some of the earlier stuff they put out in the 90s, and then by like the late 90s, I don't know, now I feel like they're this band who, as I was kind of just joking about, but I feel like I was talking to the kids in the car about this, and I said they're kind of known as like this band that does a lot of good in the world. I feel like they take on a lot of charitable endeavors to try to help people, whatever that may be, worldwide especially, which is not something a lot of bands do. So I commend them for that. I also think in my head, and I could be off on this, but especially Bono just seems like he has this ego that I can't get over. So that's kind of my issue I have with the band. Maybe it's more than just him in the band, but I do feel like there's a little bit of, I've entered the room, pay attention to me, or like, here's this event, and like suddenly we're here and now it's a big deal. So it's interesting because we'll talk about the music in a bit here, but I remembered on a previous podcast you had mentioned Billy Joel stopped making new music after a while and just replays those same hits. And I was listening to the albums, and I was kind of wondering towards the end, they might have been better off with the Billy Joel approach here, because those last few were pretty
Oh,
rough. I'm not
disagree.
not gonna
Strongly
lie about
disagree.
that. So but yeah, in general, I like a lot of their stuff. Do you want me to keep going, or do you want to put in like how you knew them before I talk about some of this other stuff about them? I think
I, I mean, are you going to talk about like
I'll just keep going.
just keep going?
I'm
Just
just
keep
gonna keep
going.
going, and then you can talk. So mostly I knew, as I said, them from just their big songs, but listening to every song on all of their studio albums, I found an interesting thing here. And I suppose a lot of singers do this, but I began to classify Bono's singing voice into four categories the longer and longer this went on. So some songs he has like the whisper, 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 whisper type one that he does. And then sometimes he tries to go falsetto for a long period of time where he's just trying to hit that high note.
Lemon.
Yeah. And then sometimes he has like this screeching, straining his voice type thing, like mysterious ways or whatever he's trying to get out there, but more Irish than that. And he had a fourth type, but I can't remember what the fourth type was now. But basically, I started to like notice different patterns in their songs as far as how he would sing his voice, and I definitely found there were certain ways he would sing that really led me to enjoy certain songs more than others. Let's just leave that at that point, I guess.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. I guess I never, I mean, you're right. I guess I just have never really even thought about that. But he does, I mean, he definitely, see, I feel like I could just dive down a rabbit hole of talking about Bono
Go for it.
and U2. I mean, especially in the 90s, it got to the point where he would actually develop different personas. Like one was the Fly, and then there's this character that he did that's Mr. Mephisto. Like these different personas that he would like, channel through the songs and through the music and like, bring out like kind of different characters during the stage shows and stuff. So I
Interesting.
wonder if that ties into the voice thing where, he's trying to kind of channel different things. I'm not sure, but that is kind of interesting to think about. Did you have anything else in
Oh, I
general
didn't know if you
or
were down your rabbit hole. If that was your
I
rabbit
mean,
hole.
I
I
have like
mean,
many rabbit holes I could go down, but
the only other thing I can think of I would like to say at the beginning here is this is just another, well, two things I guess I lied. So one is this is another band to me, like Guns N' Roses, where people were like, name the members of Guns N' Roses. They'd say Axl Slash, unless you're more of a fan. And I feel with you too, it's the same thing. It's like Bono, Edge, and some other people. I don't know who was in there. Couldn't tell you.
Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr. What the
Well,
fuck, man?
I just listened to 14 albums and I don't know that. So there you go.
I'm sorry you're wrong. That just reminded me there's something very important I needed to pull up here.
Oh, the other thing is we don't have to get into this in detail, but Cameron was in the car, as I said, and was like, I don't know U2. And I said, oh, they're a pretty famous band worldwide and for a long time. And she said, are they more famous than Guns N' Roses? And I said, I don't know. I got to think about that.
I would say
I
yes.
got to think about that. Worldwide, maybe so, right?
I would say yes. I mean, yeah, I would think so. I would say overall they're probably I mean, saying famous is tricky because I would say I guess I would so probably say yes. I mean, I would say how many famous to me is like, are they a household name? Like how many people know who they are?
Yeah.
And I would guess they're probably fairly close in that regard. Like I would think most people know Guns N' Roses, most people know U2.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like music sales and like concert sales and stuff like that, I would guess that U2 like far surpasses Guns N' Roses
I'd be curious.
just
Well, they
because
didn't have the
well,
time
I
off
mean,
either.
I would guess that they appeal to a broader audience. Like I love Guns N' Roses. I also, spoiler alert, love U2. Like I feel like they probably get more of a cross section, whereas Guns N' Roses is more going to be people that are into like harder rock and metal, and which is not as wide of an audience.
That's an interesting thing to think about too, because like my mom would still listen to Guns N' Roses. She wouldn't listen to U2, but she would still listen to Guns N' Roses, and she's like 60, so it's like the groups that I would have put in my head as like that would listen to certain bands are probably not really the actual demographics, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is fair.
What
you
else
you
you got?
well you
Give me some rabbit hole.
let me start by getting weird for a minute.
Ooh.
You mentioning that you don't feel like people know the other members of U2 reminded me of the fact that apparently Sinead O'Connor at one point wanted to get freaky with U2's bassist Adam Clayton,
Oh, okay.
and she was quoted in an interview as saying she was talking about an Irish politician who turned her down her sexual advances. She said, as sensibly did Adam Clayton of U2. I wonder if he'd known I would have let him in the tradesman's entrance. Would he have stopped to think about it for a millisecond?
Whoa.
So, fellow Irish musician Sinead O'Connor was public about the fact that she would have let Adam Clayton
Mm.
slap her bass.
Um, she
Anyway,
probably would have got more acceptance if she had
it's
dropped the
true.
picture of the burning Pope more often. But anyway,
It's true.
ah,
Um, I mean, my experience with you two, I feel like, is fairly different than yours, or at least my feelings about them. I mean, I remember when Joshua Tree came out, which was, I mean, they're already like fairly well known before that, but that's really the thing that kind of put them over the edge,
mm-hmm.
no pun intended, as
Ba-da-ba-ba.
international superstars. As I've said in a couple music episodes now, I think my brother had Joshua Tree. I mean, I was a little young when it came out, but I remember them being on MTV, and I remember my brother having that album, listening to it, and the subsequent albums in the early 90s, and I always liked their music. I actually was not like a super huge fan until later. I don't even really remember when or how it started, but sometime in the early 2000s, I think maybe it was All That You Can't Leave Behind. I bought that album and really liked it, and that kind of made me go back and re-listen to the earlier stuff. And after that, I mean, I have just kind of followed them ever since. I've seen them live 4 times.
Wow.
The first was the Vertigo tour in 2005. And then I saw them 3 times between 2015 and 2018. I mean, I think they might be the greatest live touring act of all time. At least one of the concerts that I went to was probably the greatest concert I've ever been to. They just really know how to put on a show,
I feel like
and
you've said that for like 10 bands. No offense, but
that's not true.
like Ben Folds was the best concert I have ever been to.
That's not true.
The Rolling Stones were the best concert I've ever been to. Guns N'
That is
Roses was the
definitely
best
not
concert I've
true.
ever been to. All
I
right.
mean, I love Ben Folds, but it's like U2 and then Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds are like right up vying for the top spot eternally.
Those are the top. Wait, it's the actual top two bands?
Yes. I mean,
Wow.
as far as concerts go,
Oh, concerts. Okay.
um, yeah, like if I was listing my all-time favorite bands, U2 would certainly be in the top 10.
Okay.
I don't think they would be vying for the 1 or 2 spots, but they might be in the top 5 even.
Don't tell Willie.
I mean, he's up there.
Right.
But anyway, I love U2. I honestly, you kind of said that you feel like maybe they should have stopped recording a while ago. I think that there is at least a decent amount of really good material on all of their albums. That was one thing that struck me as I was re-listening to a lot of the albums, is that I don't think they have a bad one. Like, some are better than others. Some have like catchier, better songs than others, but even Pop, which is kind of widely derided and, widely considered to be one of their worst albums, like I listened to that today and it's pretty solid. I mean, none of the songs off it made my top 10 list, but I think it's a pretty decent listen from start to finish. And I mean, their last 2 albums, Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, I think that there are some great tracks on those. I think that, to me, it's kind of remarkable that a band that has been together for almost 50 years now is still making music that kind of has something to say, and they're trying to stay relevant instead of just kind of riding off into the sunset. Um, One thing I wanted to ask you about is that when this topic first came up, you had said that you felt like they were controversial. And I'm assuming what you meant by that is that they're a divisive band. Is that right? Is that how you meant that?
Well, I guess in the sense of, as I kind of alluded to with my comments, like I just feel like in my head they're a very hoity-toity band. Like, hey, look at me, we're over here. We're U2, we're important, we're famous. So I kind of get the vibe from them, but I guess maybe if you're a
Yeah.
fan of the band, you might not get that.
I mean, I guess I see to an extent. I actually wanted to also read a quote from Noel Gallagher of Oasis fame, where he was talking about U2, and he said, I get a bit frustrated when people are like, I don't like U2. And I'm like, no, what you're saying is you don't like Bono. It's
Ah,
like you're not telling me you don't like one single note they've ever done. That's rubbish. It's nonsense. But then he said, I've said this to him, meaning Bono, so I'll say it to you. Nobody likes a do gooder. Nobody likes it. That's
hmm.
why people like me, I'm a do badder. I mean, you say, and I've seen other people say this too, that they think Bono has this ego, where he thinks he's like a messiah or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder how much of that is actually him and how much of it is this. I mean, because I think there is something to the idea that people don't like a do-gooder. Nobody likes someone getting up and talking about like saving the starving children and whatever. Like it's always going to feel a little bit preachy. But
I
like at
mean,
the end of the day, he's talking about doing good things. And you said yourself, like they have done a lot of good things for charity. So like what do you think it is about I guess Bono or the band that like puts you off?
I mean, well, he's definitely the centerpiece of it, but I feel like he just has a certain body language or the way he handles himself. Like to me, he knows he does good, and like he wants you to know that he knows that he does good as well. And so he carries himself. Maybe it's one of these personas you're talking about. Maybe it's just ego. Maybe it's just his self confidence. Could be
Yeah.
anything. But I just feel like he carries himself in such a way that he's like, Bono is over here. Have you seen me? Have you seen me?
I wish everyone could see your Bono impression right now.
Right?
I mean, I guess I do see that to an extent. I mean, he definitely has like a larger than life persona, but one thing that I kind of dug into over the past few days was trying to understand why people don't like Bono. And it seems like a lot of people who have never interacted with him have the same sort of feeling about him that you do.
Mm-hmm.
But there are like countless stories out there of people that have like actually had personal interactions with him, or like people that have like worked for you too, or had those sorts of relationships. And every single account of someone who has actually had dealings with Bono is that he's actually like the nicest, most down to earth person you've ever met.
Yeah.
Like there are even videos online. Like there's this one video I found where this guy in Ireland was putting together a proposal video for his girlfriend, and he had gotten this band that she was really into, which is like a fairly unknown outside of Ireland band. They agreed to be part of it, so they went to this like countryside park to film this proposal video, and Bono and his wife just happened to be out for a walk at that same park, and they approached them, and like Bono filmed, like this really sweet message for this guy's wife, who like he doesn't know this guy. Like, a lot of celebrities would have been like, no, fuck off.
Yeah, there's definitely that. I mean, I definitely see here, just I mean, if you search online, there's definitely kind of what you're talking about. The more you get to know him, or people that have talked about his good deeds say they really like him here. I'm on of all sites, this will interest you, prince.org,
Ooh, I
checking out some quotes here. Someone
definitely
said
have a membership.
he said he should stop trying to act like Jesus and stick to making music. He's not a politician. Who does he think he is anyway? And then somebody said he's been fighting causes since day one, gives millions away in charity every year, blah, 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 blah. So he's definitely a divisive person. I guess,
Would you
pin,
say he's playing Jesus to the lepers in his head?
I mean, you might, because that's probably a lyric to a song I'm not catching, but just me here today. So those are going to fly fast and hard.
But anyway, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like, and I mean, there was even, I mean, you're a South Park fan.
Yeah.
There's an episode where Bono is like a giant turd.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But I mean, I do think, I do think a lot of I think Noel Gallagher is right that a lot of people who say they hate you too, like it is actually more about Bono. And he does seem to have this kind of like love or hate, persona. But like personally, I think it is a persona. Like I think that it is, and it's interesting too because I feel like that really developed more in the 90s. Like
Well,
in the throughout the 80s, even as they were getting bigger, I feel like even through the Joshua Tree, like they seemed very kind of like serious and straightforward. Like they're just playing these songs. And I feel like it was really, starting with like Octung Baby that he started, having this kind of like super rock star persona and like feeling more like self-important and grandiose.
well, and listen, maybe, like I said, maybe one of the options is just that he's very self-confident in what he does, and you do tend to handle yourself a little bit more,
Yeah.
in a certain way when that's the case. Like I'm positive I've probably rubbed people wrong over the
No,
years
what?
because I act the way I act. But like even at
That's
school,
true.
I'm sure there's secretly teachers that are like that guy's a jerk, but it's just because I'm like
Yeah.
I know what I do is good. So
Well, and I did read a couple interviews with Bono himself where he admits that he has a pretty big ego.
okay,
And he basically says, I think I actually mentioned on the Metallica episode that, yeah, 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 yeah.
oh yeah,
One of the
that was more
reasons
Macho Man.
U2 is still together after all these years with their original members is that they split the songwriting credits and therefore all of the money for everything they make 4 ways. A lot of bands will kind of divide, realistically in U2, Bono writes most of the lyrics, like 90% of the lyrics. The Edge writes most of the music. And I mean, that's how it is in most bands. You have kind of like the main songwriter or two songwriters, but in a lot of bands, it's credited to those people, and therefore they get royalties, they get, more money off it.
Yeah.
With U2, like from the very beginning, everything has been split equally among the members,
Yeah,
and
those members that include Bono and Edge and the two I see you didn't mention. So there's that.
Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr.
Yeah.
Well, I will say from what I've read, a lot of their songs are kind of written like through jam sessions, so everyone contributes. But my point is, one of the things I read Bono saying is that one of the reasons that they split everything 4 ways is that he's basically paying everyone for putting up with him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
Like
interesting.
he knows that he has an ego, and like he said that he's glad that he is in a band with these people that he's known all these years because he needs them to like take him down a peg, and like
Okay.
he doesn't want to be surrounded by a bunch of yes men because that could be dangerous for everybody. So
Yeah.
there is some truth to the whole idea of him having this oversized ego.
You don't want too much power. Next thing you find, you've paid out $15 million in hush money, and you don't run your company anymore. Shout out to Vince McMahon while we're at
Oh, what? Anyway,
it.
the other thing, this is last point about Bono
Yeah.
being maybe not a terrible person. I have always taken this as being an indicator that he's probably not too terrible. He has been married to the same woman for 40 years.
Oh, it sounds terrible.
They met when they were 12 years old,
Holy shit.
and he has been married to her for 40 years at this point.
Tell me he's
By
not 52.
he's 62.
Okay, good.
But he's worth $700 million. So if he was an asshole, his wife could easily divorce him and have hundreds of millions of dollars
Oh
and go
my
do
God.
whatever. So she has like no reason to stick around, if he was actually like a dick.
He's got $700 million.
He is worth $700 million.
I thought he gave all the stuff away to charity. What's going on here?
Well, that's another kind of contra. Apparently, a lot of people in Ireland don't love U2 because they have played some games with taxes in Ireland.
Oh, interesting.
They've moved. Apparently, there was a thing in like the early 2000s where they changed the tax structure,
Okay.
and as soon as that was introduced, Bono like moved all of his stuff offshore so that he wouldn't get taxed there,
That's crap.
which is shitty. Like it is shitty. I get it. Like
Yeah.
that is shady. Like he's not paying into the infrastructure of his home country, but on the other hand, like
Yes.
he has still done a lot of stuff for charity and to help people. Like U2 as a band gave $10 million to the development of the COVID vaccine.
Okay.
Like, you know, they definitely do still put their money where their mouths are. Like they do put personal money into these things. So
Was that
it's
towards
complicated.
the
Like he's a
Irish
complicated
vaccine,
figure.
or was that in America?
I think it was in America.
Probably, yeah. I was looking up Irish bands just out of curiosity because you had mentioned they were one of the best. So I was just
I
curious
mean, Thin Lizzy's
who
probably
else
up
was from
there.
there. Yeah, I was just checking the list here. Ones I know: the Dubliners, Cranberries, Pogues, Boomtown Rats. I didn't know they were Irish, so there's
I guess I
them.
didn't either. Bob
Uh,
Geldof was
they have
Irish.
Flogging
Huh.
Molly. Are you gonna let that slide or not?
I honestly don't know a whole lot about Flogging Molly. I know that they're kind of
Oh,
an international mix, but
that's fair. Irish Rovers. Not many more
I
I know
did learn
anyway.
recently that the frontman for Flogging Molly lives in Detroit, which is weird.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought he was in California.
Dave King, I think it
That
is.
sounds right.
Yeah.
I should do a Flogging Molly Dropkick Murphys cast. That'd be fun.
Who else? Oh, Rory Gallagher was a great Irish guitarist and musician
Okay.
who died too young.
Oh, is he 27?
I don't think so. I think he was a little older, but I'm
Anyway,
curious. Anyway, U2. Let's talk about the music, man.
let's talk about the Music Man. So it's a musical about a
Oh,
guy
he
who
was
has
47 for the
76
record.
trombones.
Do you
And
want to just dive into the top 10 list or
we could get into this. I want to preface before we jump into picking songs here that I gave Joe a lot of shit about doing this podcast this week, and he freaked out big time that it was going to be bad and I was going to shit all over his band.
true?
But publicly, I just want to say I was mostly scaring him. However,
Oh, uh-oh.
However, as Joe has already stated on this podcast, he's interested to see what songs I picked because I am not as big of a U2
I
fan
am
as
very
he
curious
is.
about that.
And I want to encourage our other hosts to take on bands they don't know or don't like for this reason, because it's good to get the other perspective, I think.
That is true.
So
Let me
Joe
say before we
Joe
get into
owes
the
the
list,
used podcast.
that's not going to happen. I will say though that more than any of the other bands we've talked about so far, I do have a strong personal connection to U2. So I mean, some of these picks like are very kind of like just tied to the fiber of my being, and you know, I have very strong like memories related to some of these. Like they take me to like certain places in my life, and like so it is very personal for me.
I can't wait
So
to hear all the stories and details.
I mean, we probably won't get all those, but
Is there a
do
book
you
coming out that has them, or no?
there's a book in the works that you know has relates to some of those eras in my
All right.
life. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. So as I compiled my list, I was saying before we started recording, I think I had 27 songs I came up with. Now I will say my goal here was that because I was kind of teasing Joe before we started really getting to the details of this week's podcast, that I didn't really know or listen to a lot of U2, but push came to shove, if you had said like name a dozen U2 songs, I could have did that very easily, I'm sure.
You could have did it.
I could have did it. So my goal was kind of to listen to everything I hadn't listened to, and I did get through all of their studio albums, and I gave every song a minimum of a minute and a half to 2 minutes, and if it didn't hook me by that time on a couple albums, I skipped ahead.
That's fair.
A lot of them while I was driving, but if I was home doing something, I did listen to all the songs in their entirety. So, point being, my goal was to try to find some songs that were not the ones I knew beforehand to see how they stacked up against the ones I knew beforehand. So,
We should also mention that we did set a limit of no more than 3 songs from any one album.
yes, and I didn't really remember that, but
Well, that's all right.
I just checked mine, and I don't have more than 3 from anything anyway, so it's fine.
Cool.
All right, so my honorable mentions. Are you ready?
Do it.
This is fast and loose, and I want to preface my list also by saying a lot of those famous tunes that I mentioned at the beginning, I was like concerned about how many songs I had, so I cut them out, and they could have made it here on the honorable mentions perhaps, but they didn't today,
Huh.
which is always how this works. So here we go. Number 13, honorable mention for me, is The Wanderer, which is the Johnny Cash duet. Which
That is a great one.
I just really liked Johnny Cash's voice with the synth background on that one, which is kind of a different sound for him. So That was fun. I don't know if that counts, but it is at the bottom here, number 13.
I mean,
My
it's on one of their albums,
That's
so.
true. My number that was from Zooropa, by the way, and spoiler alert, that's my only song from that album.
Ooh.
Number 12, I have In a Little While, which is from All That You Can't Leave Behind, 2000. This is, I just wrote down, it's like a good slower song and sounded very bluesy to me, which not all their songs sound that way. So I enjoyed that one being different. And my number 11, my last runner up here, honorable mention, is the song Kite, which
Ooh,
is off of All That You Can't Leave Behind
it's a
as
good one.
well. Just said again here, good jam on that one, good upbeat chords in the background as they're going through. So kind of enjoyed that one also. All three of those had never heard before, for the record as well.
Wow, cool. I am a big fan of all three of those. I have four honorable mentions. Making this list was very difficult for me. I feel like there are probably another 10 songs that could have been in my top 10 list. As far as honorable mentions, I didn't actually rank my honorable mentions, so these are just in any order. But first one is "Raised by Wolves," which is off of "Songs of Innocence,"
Oh, I didn't
which
mind that one.
I like it a lot. It's a song about the Troubles. It's like specifically inspired by one of Bono's childhood friends who witnessed a car bombing that was quite horrific. Um, but another thing that I will say is that some of my choices are heavily influenced by live performances of some of the songs. Be they like videos I've seen or actually seeing concerts.
Okay.
And during their, they did two tours based around the Innocence and Experience albums. One was the Innocence and Experience tour. The other was the Experience and Innocence tour.
Oh, that's not confusing.
Um, but in both of them, they had a segment around the middle of the concert that was kind of based around like the Troubles. And it started with Cedarwood Road, which is a song kind of about Bono's childhood. And then I believe it went into a stripped down version of Sunday Bloody Sunday. And then it went into Raised by Wolves. And like at the end of Raised by Wolves, they put this thing on this giant screen talking about like this specific bombing and how it was the greatest loss of life in a single day in Ireland's history, and no one was ever brought to justice for it. And it made me cry.
That's because they routinely abstain from war, a bunch of sissies.
uh, but I mean, that's the thing about a U2 concert is it will make you feel some feelings. Anyway, Raised by Wolves, good song. I think it's one of the best songs off of Songs of Innocence, and proof that they can still put some good stuff out. I'll be a little briefer on my other honorable mentions.
You're fine.
One is Sweetest Thing, which
Okay.
is actually off of a best of album. It was not on any of their like proper studio albums. It's just a nice, sweet song. It was actually our cake cutting song at our wedding.
Ah,
Another one which I feel like is really underappreciated in U2's catalog is The Hands That Built America, which was actually from the soundtrack for the movie Gangs of New York.
wow. Okay.
And it's just this kind of like stripped down acoustic, like kind of meditative song about being an immigrant, but I really like it.
Did not listen to that one.
And then my last one is one that I really debated putting in my top 10 list proper, which is Mysterious Ways
Who
off
moves in
of
mysterious ways?
She Does,
Yeah, she does.
off of Achtung Baby. It's just a jam. Like I mean, the guitar riff on that. Uh, I mean, the guitar tone is not like anything else Edge, I don't think, has done elsewhere. He's using this Ottawa, Ottawa, not Ottawa.
Yeah. Ottawa.
But he's using an Ottawa setting on a pedal, and it just has this weird, like, funky sound. And it just, you put that song on anywhere, and people are going to want to shake their butts. So it's a
Yeah,
jam.
we like the Ottawa.
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 But let's get into the proper top 10, Cody
Let's do
Fleming.
it. Are you
What do
ready
you
for
what do you
this?
got in your bottom slot?
Number Sinead
Phrasing.
O'Connor. Just kidding. Here we go.
Oh,
Number
hey.
10 for me, coming in on the YouTube countdown, 1984, The Unforgettable Fire. This song is called Bad.
Ooh.
I don't know how this made it on my top 10, but this is the one I was like, wait, this is my top 10. I guess it ended up in my top 10. It's a good song. It's got like a low strum to it. And again, I had talked about you're gonna see my choices here, but I prefer a lot of the songs. Here comes where
That are about heroin?
Bono really tries to strain his voice. Like,
No.
I'm more into screamo music, so I
True.
enjoy the ones where he's louder, I think. So this is Bad, which I also had never heard before.
Really?
There you go, 4 in a row.
I am surprised you've never heard that before. That was like
I
one of
like the
their
Michael
early
Jackson
hits.
cover.
Was Michael Jackson's version about heroin? Because the U2 one is.
I don't think so. I think it was about. Let's not get into that. Let's keep going.
Oh, my number 10 is one that honestly shocked me. Like when I set out making this list, I fully expected to not have this anywhere near my top 10 list.
Okay.
And it is from the album All That You Can't Leave Behind, Beautiful Day.
Oh, there it is.
So
Why don't you just pick Enter Sandman while you're at it? Jeez.
well, and that's the thing.
Just kidding.
Like
I'm just kidding.
it feels like the most kind of basic bitch U2 song. It was like everywhere when that album came out.
Yeah.
But like goddamn, it's an amazing song. Like I really was struggling with it, and earlier today we were driving around and it happened to come on the radio in the car, and I know every single word to that song. Like I was getting into it, and like you just can't deny like starting with like the Edge's guitar work, and it just builds and builds, and like it's just
Yeah.
it's turns out that it was popular for a reason.
I mean, it's a good song. I had it in my 27. It didn't make my list. Spoiler alert, but
That's fair.
it's a good song. We don't have we'll have to do a crash course aggregate here at the end since there's only 2 of us and I'm not keeping track. So here we go. We'll see if anything even gets on both our lists. Maybe we
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a couple, but I'm curious to see how it shakes
out. All right, my number 9. You ready for this? Spoiler alert. It's another song I had never heard before.
Ooh.
This is from How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, and this is called Love and Peace or Else.
Which my notes
next to it say good tune.
So I mean, it's a good tune.
It is a good tune. I think that one builds a little bit too, doesn't it?
Yeah. My number 9 is also from How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. And for a second, I was like, are we going to have the same number 9? Mine is City of Blinding Lights.
City of Blinding Lights.
It's just like, it's all about the guitar for me. Like, one of the things I love about U2 is the way that, I mean, specifically the Edge, I guess, the way that he just kind of like layers, and like, this probably sounds really stupid and cliche, but they build like sonic landscapes.
Ooh.
They're like layers upon layers of sounds. And like, I feel like this song simultaneously feels like a classic U2 song because you have like that Edge guitar driving it, but it also sounds modern because of like the production and like all the layers on it. And like, I just really like that song.
So this is funny. You're going to not like this comment, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. That was my 14 song I cut off at the end here. You know why I liked it?
Why?
My notes said, and I quote, "This is their song that is the closest to a 30 Seconds to Mars song." How's that?
So what's your number 8, Cody?
How does that make you feel about liking that one now? Here we go.
I don't like that.
Number 8, I'm going to a one of their lesser known albums here, The Joshua Tree.
Never heard of it.
No. This is one of their bigger songs. I'm going with Where the Streets Have No Name for my number 8. Just kind of like what I put on this for notes here. Get your pulse racing, kind of has a drum beat that's almost like a heartbeat that's kind of tapping in the background, almost like some choir music going on. It's got a lot going on. This is one of their big songs, and for a reason. This is a good tune all around.
It's all right.
Where the streets have no name. That was James Hetfield doing Bono.
I like it.
Yep.
Where the streets have no name.
Oh, that's better, yeah. Well,
My
the streets have no name.
yeah. My number 8 is a little song called "Bad" off of the Unforgettable Fire. Um, it's a great song. Again, this is kind of, I think, an earlier example of what will become the Edge's signature sound.
Cashing checks.
Yes, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Mm.
I mean, to me, U2 is mostly the sound of a Fender Stratocaster through a Vox AC30 with a bunch of delay on it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, that's kind of like at the heart of this song. I mean, I like the lyrics. I didn't even know this really until I was kind of diving into stuff for this podcast, but apparently it was inspired by a friend of Bono's who was addicted to heroin. And I mean, if you look at the lyrics that way, you can kind of see like the struggle to like be okay and like, but I like that you can interpret it really however you want. Like it feels like there are kind of layers there. But it's just it's a good, well written song.
Yeah, no, I like it, especially the part where they're talking about Mr. Brownstone. Wrong podcast. That was Rose's one. All right.
Spoiler alert, not the last song about heroin in my list.
Uh-oh. Let's head to number, are we up to 7?
7.
All right, number 7 for me.
Oh
There was
boy.
a time.
Oh boy, there's a story.
There was a time when I bought a soundtrack for 2
In
songs.
a world. Oh boy.
Those 2 songs were,
one of them was by Nick Cave.
one of them was not Nick Cave.
He's on that soundtrack.
That's not why I bought it, though.
He
One
is
of them
on that
was
soundtrack.
Seal, and the other was U2. And this is Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me from the Batman Forever soundtrack. In 1995, I had it on cassette because
I almost used a screenshot from that video as my background.
So this is just it's a fun tune. It's a movie tune. I mean, I don't know. Seems like if you apply it to the movie, it both kind of fits as like kind of a goofy rockish song, and it's kind of overlaid here with the images from that movie in my mind, which are all sorts of goofy with Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey and bat nipples. Wait, did this one have bat nipples, or was the one after this one that had bat nipples?
I think this one did have bat nipples. I think this is when the bat nips were introduced.
Okay, yeah.
Got your Val Kilmer. I haven't seen that movie since it came out. I remembered liking it at the time, but I'm sure it does not hold up well.
I'm trying to remember. We may no. I think we did watch 3 and 4, but we didn't watch 1 and 2. Oddly,
Weird.
Probably go back and watch those again.
Yeah,
but anyway,
that
that's what I got here. Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me.
My number 7 is yet another song from your honorable mentions.
Oh,
which is another song off of All That You Can't Leave Behind called In a Little While.
Okay.
Like you said, it's got kind of a bluesy feel. I really like the guitar on it. I mean, it feels different than what the Edge usually does. I like the lyrics too. I mean, it feels like so apparently, I mean, the song is about being hungover. And apparently Bono literally showed up to the studio and kind of ad-libbed it when he was super hungover. But I like that it feels small. Like a lot of their songs are kind of like big and grandiose, and a lot of their songs kind of feel like they're about trying to save the world. But this one feels more kind of intimate and personal, and I like that fact.
That's fair.
It's just like a drunk guy singing about his wife, and it works for me.
I like it. Okay, I'm highlighting the ones we have in common. So I think so far it's just In a Little While and Bad, if I'm correct.
That sounds right.
All right, my number 6. Are you ready for this one? You're going to be like, whoa.
Oh boy, I'm
my
excited.
number 6 is off Joshua Tree.
What? Never heard of it.
Are you excited for this pick? I give you 5 guesses. You're not going to come up with this one.
Is it Red Hill Mining Town?
My number 6 is Red Hill Mining Town.
Yeah, really?
You got it. Yeah, for real.
That's a good song. I feel like I always feel like that's kind of underrated.
I have never heard this song before either. So for those of you keeping track at home, that is 2 songs I've heard of so far, and all the rest are new songs.
Is it the voice again?
Yeah, I put
I'm
good
still
crooner. This is my
waiting.
note. Bono is so much better when he screech is. And then I put slow and then loud chorus. That's a good formula to have, kind of builds and then erupts like a volcano at each of the
Yes.
choruses, which is great. Slow intro on that one as well, but that's a good one.
Yeah. I do love the way that that song builds. I
Also,
mean, I think,
go ahead.
no, you go.
I was just thinking Red Hill Mining Town also sounds like a Sonic Hedgehog stage, but
Yeah, it does.
go on.
No, I mean, that's probably my favorite track off of the second half of Joshua Tree. I mean, that's the thing is that album, the first 5 songs to me are like all Stone Cold classics. And then the B side is a little more mixed. I mean, they're all good, but like to varying degrees. But yeah, I think that's probably my favorite one off it. And like that would probably be in my top 20, but it didn't make my top 10 spoiler.
Okay.
My number 6, I feel might be kind of a controversially low placement for this song.
Okay.
It is the opening track of the album War. And it is Sunday, Bloody Sunday.
Ah, yes.
It's an amazing song. I think it's one of the greatest protest songs ever written. It's very, very powerful in concert. I mean, one of the great, it's, specifically about Bloody Sunday, which was an incident that took place in Ireland where some protesters got shot by the British police force, I believe.
Sounds right.
But it transcends, I mean, it's obviously tied to that, but it also transcends that. And, they have even used it in concert to comment on varying different, atrocities that have happened around the world. And it's, kind of a commentary on the horrors of war in general. It's an amazing song. Part of me feels wrong in not putting it at least in my top 3, but the songs that I have higher up just kind of have a deeper personal meaning to me specifically. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. It's interesting too. I know there are multiple Bloody Sundays. I just Wikipedia'd it. There are a lot of Bloody Sundays all around the world that are called Bloody Sundays. So that's interesting. Okay, we're up to 5. Is that correct? I think
yes,
so.
sir.
All right, get ready for this, folks. It is my third. It is my third and final song off Joshua Tree.
Oh boy.
And it is With or Without You. What a shocker here. Funky beat in this one, but
Never heard of it.
Somehow Bono's voice just kind of works in this one. I don't know, like you can understand him better than you can in other songs that he sings. Because voice, I mean, it has the accent obviously as well. And then I mentioned he tries.
I don't feel like you really hear his accent much on like any of their songs.
No, I'm not saying you do, but I'm saying it could be a contributing factor to these other ones where I don't hear him as clearly. So I mean,
it could also just be that most of that song is so stripped down that his vocals are really front and center.
That's a good point too. They don't have all the overly dramatic crybaby music in the background like they do in the last 3 or 4 albums. What? I didn't say that. And the first one and the second one. Stop. Keep going.
Is that a song that you had heard before?
I had heard this one before. Yes, that is my third song.
Nice. My number 5 is also from Joshua Tree. It is my first song off of Joshua Tree, actually.
What?
And it is my second song about heroin. It is Running to Stand Still. Honestly, really struggled with not putting this one higher. Like at one point, it was like my number 3. I really love this song. It's it's one of 2 U2 songs that I regularly play on guitar and torture my wife with.
Oh.
But I love the feel of it. It's got it's got harmonica, which you don't hear on a ton of U2 songs. It's got some slide guitar on it. The sort of concept of Joshua Tree, the album, is that it was inspired by U2's love of America. Like they had been touring America apparently a lot throughout the early 80s. So it's kind of like an album inspired by like their perception of America. And I think you feel that on this song. And also, again, I mean, it's about heroin. Like at the end, he says she will suffer the needle chill, which is obviously a reference to that. But I feel like the rest of the song could kind of be more open to interpretation about, someone kind of struggling with their place in life and like in like a relationship
Or
and
just a national park in California.
or that,
Yeah.
but I just really love that song. And I feel like I don't know if I can say it's underappreciated because it is one that they like still play fairly often in concert, but I feel like especially from the Joshua Tree, it's probably one of the lesser known songs. When there are at least like three like just massive hits off that album.
Yeah, makes sense. Am not I don't remember that one, to be honest with you, from
I think
listening
it's
to that.
the
The fifth
third
song
track
looks
on
like.
it. Oh, fifth,
It's
really.
the fifth here. Yeah, I'm just reading the other ones here.
It's like really slow and kind of stripped down.
Okay.
Um, Builds up a little bit towards the end, but it's not
Ah,
like a
Bullet the
huge
Blue Sky. I thought about
crescendo.
that one. Well, another song about heroin. There you go. Another needle and the
Yes.
damage done. We'll move on. All right. We're up to number 4. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
This is not a song that was new to me, but I will admit this is a song I had forgotten I had ever heard. So there's that. This is from 2004's How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, and this is All Because of You, which I'm surprised is anywhere near this high, mixed in with some of these classics. But I just wrote down again, like kind of that strained vocal from Bono, really like some banger guitar riffs in this one as well. And it was just a really fun song, kind of
It
like,
is a good one.
I don't know, this was kind of, that album was kind of a little bit like, what was the Hardware to Self-Destruct, was kind of like just a later album in their discography, like we did for Metallica, that I was like, this has pretty good stuff on it. So
Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid album.
it was better than I thought it was going to be.
That song almost made my list, but not quite.
Uh,
Oh, because of you. Anyway, um, my number 4 is another song we have in common. It
oh,
is my second song off of Joshua Tree,
okay.
and it is With or Without You.
Okay.
Um, it's just a great song. Apparently, this song, interesting note, was their first number one hit in the United States.
Okay.
And I love Bono's vocals. I love the bass line. I love how it builds. One thing that I read about, which makes sense, but I hadn't really thought about before, is apparently the edge was intentionally restrained on this song
Hmm.
because it does like the entire song is kind of building and building and building. And then, like, towards the end, when the edge finally comes in with his guitar, he plays like three notes. And it's like, it could have been like this even bigger thing, but like because it's so restrained, it's like more effective. But I mean, I'm a sucker for a good song about like strained relationships and longing, and I think this is probably up there as one of the best ones.
Well,
Also, I mean, like on a more personal note, the first time I saw U2 was in 2005. They were playing 3 nights in Chicago, and I saw them on the last night, and they had not played this song the first 2 nights, and then they did play it on the night that I was there,
oh,
and so
nice.
that just made it even more amazing for me.
Was there a big song they didn't play the night you were there?
Um,
Did you ever do the math on that?
no, I don't really remember, to be honest.
Kind of interesting, though. Okay. Just to clarify here, With or Without You was number 4, correct, on yours?
Correct.
And Bad was number 8.
Correct.
All right, here we go. My number 3. Are you ready for this?
Do it.
We're up to number 3. Are you
My
ready
God.
for this?
Oh, I'm so curious.
This is a song I had never heard before,
Ooh.
and it is off of Rattle and Hum.
Double ooh.
Double ooh. This is Silver and Gold, the live version. I like live versions of stuff in general, but I like this one all around. Has a super fun song beat to it. Bono just kind of seems like loose. I don't know if that's because it's a live performance. Maybe he's just a little more playing with the crowd a little bit, but then he does get a little preachy in the live version. But I was okay with that because I still like storytelling to an audience, even mid-song. This is a song about apartheid. He's doing the whole thing here.
Yeah.
And Edge is pretty good in this one as well. So this was my surprise pick for number 3, Silver and Gold.
Side note, but related question: Did
Yes.
you watch the
No,
Rattle and Hum version of Sunday Bloody Sunday that I
I
sent
did
you?
not. I did not.
Really?
I'm a bad person.
Oh my god!
I don't like that song. No offense.
Well,
Sorry.
for the listener out there,
Yes.
Rattle and Hum the album is received mixed reviews from U2 fans.
Okay.
But there is an accompanying documentary film which is also kind of mixed. But in that movie, there's a performance of Sunday Bloody Sunday that I feel is one of the greatest live performances of all time. It was actually It was filmed, I believe, in the United States, but it was a day that in Ireland there had been an IRA bombing during, I think it's the Remembrance Day parade, which is basically like their version of Memorial Day.
Okay.
So someone blew up a bunch of old veterans who were just like doing their thing.
That's pretty shitty.
And like Bono just like loses his shit in the middle of this version of Sunday Bloody Sunday, like just anti-war, anti-violence. Like it's just
Like just
amazing.
talking.
Like, yeah, like he
Okay.
starts talking
I
about
will watch it.
how,
I haven't watched it, but I will watch it.
yeah, he talks about, how like everybody talks about like the glory of the revolution, but like nobody wants to talk about like, what that costs. And anyway, you need to watch it. It's really good.
All right. As I mentioned, I don't love the song, but I will watch the video because I believe
Yeah.
it's good. So,
All right. So our number 3, right?
yes.
My number 3 is a song off of Achtung Baby. And my number 3 is a song that was very briefly in my top spot, which is appropriate because it is One. Is it getting better?
That was
Do
weird.
you
They would
feel the same?
cover a
Metallica song.
Creed song, but go ahead.
Creed. What?
One, oh,
Oh,
one.
I was thinking of the Metallica song.
Yeah, I know
One.
you were, but I went deeper than that. The only way is one.
Oh boy. Anyway,
My band fired me. Oh yeah. Don't listen to Walter Bridge. Keep going. Sorry.
Mark Tremonti's a great guitarist. Anyway, I think this is one of the
I
greatest
feel
songs.
violent. I'm sorry. Keep going. I'm sorry. Keep going. Whole podcast has been ambushed by Creed.
Oh, I can't go on. I can't go on.
I kind of want to listen to that album, though. I'm not gonna lie.
One love.
There you go.
One life. Anyway, I think this is one of the greatest songs ever written. It's kind of like, hold on a second here. Excuse me. It feels different than a lot of other U2 songs. It starts with, I mean, the guitar is completely different than what you hear on a lot of U2 songs.
Okay.
It starts with that kind of like slightly dirty, but like still like fairly stripped down sounding riff. And I don't know, lyrically, I just love the song. I like that it's about the fact that people are kind of connected, but that doesn't mean that they're like super happy about it, or like, I love the idea of like we're one but we're not the same. One point he says we hurt each other, then we do it again, but then at another point he says we get to carry each other. Like it's
Carry each other. Yes.
It seems like, I actually read, I think it was The Edge was saying that he thinks that lyric is kind of key, and the fact that we get to carry each other, like it's a privilege, like it's like an act of grace. And I just think that there's, you could just read a lot into this song, and it's,
Yeah.
another thing I really like about it, one of my favorite things, which I mean, Bono is like a religious person, but one of my favorite things is when people make religious references in like non-religious or like secular songs.
Okay.
Um, there's the lyric in this song: have you come here for forgiveness? Have you come to raise the dead? Have you come here to play Jesus to the lepers in your head? Like, I just like the visualization there. Anyway, I love the lyrics, I love music. Like I said, this was very nearly my number one song, but I had to move it down a couple spots. But it
I
is
would not
an
have
amazing
guessed
song.
ahead of time that that was going to be near the top of yours.
Really.
No.
Hmm. So I mean, you're not a fan?
No, I would have guessed it would have been very near the top of yours. I had it in my 27, but my note next to it said, "This isn't as good as I remembered it being."
Ah, sad times.
I'll tell you what, sad times. I'm drinking this strawberry melon fizz truly here behind the scenes, and every time I take a drink is yuck. All right, so here's that. Okay, my number two. Talk about songs about heroin. Here we go. This, I think, triple check. Yes, this is my oldest song of theirs on my list. We're going
Ooh,
way back to 1983.
wow.
Curveball. To the war, and this is Sunday, Bloody Sunday. Yes, indeed. Here it
What?
is. I got you with your own
Ah,
prank. Love it.
oh
Military
man.
beats. Lyrics are great. I love a good political anthem. This is a classic tune. Yeah,
Did,
I mean,
did you not actually watch that performance though?
that is true. I actually did
Oh,
not watch the performance, not because I ignored it, but because I forgot about it.
that's fair. I'm relieved. I mean, I mean, to each their own. Like, I would not have been super shocked if this wasn't on your list, but I was a little
Yes.
surprised when you said that.
Yes. Was this your six?
This was my number six. And like
Okay.
I said, some part of me feels like it should have been in my top three, but like I just have like a more personal
Okay.
connection to some of these other songs.
Well, I think this is winning at the moment for our most common song. Let's see what happens here.
Well, my number two is probably my biggest curveball on my list.
What? Discotheque?
It is Discotheque off of Pop.
Are
What?
you fucking kidding? You're
I
kidding.
I am kidding. No,
Okay,
it is
good.
a song off of Zooropa,
Ooh,
and it is also a song off of the soundtrack for a Wim Wenders film.
I don't even know what you just said.
It is Stay, in parentheses, Far Away, So Close. Cody has no idea what I'm talking about.
I listened to it obviously at some point this week.
Um, so this is a case where like I like the album version. Like 95% of my appreciation for this song is the lyrics, but um there is a live version where it's just Bono and the Edge and an acoustic guitar, and I kind of like that version even better. But apparently the concept behind the like recording of the album version of this is that I don't know if I really get this, but they said that they were inspired by Frank Sinatra.
Okay.
But I think what they meant by that is that it is just kind of stripped down, like it's just guitar, drums, and bass. There's not like a ton of production going on. But I don't feel like Bono is really like crooning hard at like a Sinatra-esque way or anything. It's also a song that is about like domestic violence. So I mean,
Oh.
I mean, maybe that was inspired by Frank Sinatra, his personal life,
Yeah, that's
um, but I just like, man, the first time I heard this was actually, I am such a fan that I used to own several of their concert DVDs. And like I said, there's a version on one of those where it was just like, the Edge and Bono walked out onto like a smaller stage in the middle of the audience and did this song. And it's just, I think it's incredible. Like it's one of my favorite songs ever written. I think
hmm.
it's just again, it feels more kind of like the subject matter feels more kind of small and intimate and like more focused. And it's kind of commenting on, it's like someone who's kind of in an abusive relationship and in a bad spot and is just stuck there. Like they don't have anywhere to go. And I mean, there's some lyrics that I think are just fantastic. So I love that song.
That's fair. Well,
Here we are.
here we are. So before we do our number ones,
Oh boy.
Joe's gonna not commit on air to listening to the used. How about could I get you to commit on the air to a Linkin Park podcast?
No.
Joe!
Those are both equally terrible in my mind.
Oh, Joe, but you should give it a try. That's why it'd be fun to get the outsider perspective. Joe. I'm gonna keep sweet
Here's the
talking
thing.
you.
Here's the thing.
I'm gonna
Here's the
sweet
thing.
talk you.
Well,
So you get into this. Yes.
listen. If it was a situation where it involved listening to like one album that is like a band that I'm not into or familiar with, sure, I would do that. But I'm not going to listen to an entire discography. Like that's crazy.
6 albums, 45 minutes each. They're short.
I mean, if we were doing the podcast in like 3 months and I had that much time to space it out, maybe.
Deal. Start doing it. Here we go.
Oh boy.
We'll do. Can we do Linkin Park? Can we do a Linkin Park one? Can we get Joe to commit on air to? There are 7 studio albums for Linkin Park. I'll tell you, I myself had only listened to the first 4 prior to like 2 years ago. That's all I'm going to say about it after that. But
I'll think about it. That's
all right, we got to think about it.
Say.
We got to think about it there, folks. We got to think about it. Also, shout out to our hosts who have disappeared, such as Blue. All right, number one.
My boy Blue. Man, number one. I'm so curious.
Number one.
Am I going to be surprised?
I don't know. Do you know anybody with wings that lives in New York?
Are you serious?
My number one song, Angel of Harlem.
Wow.
My number one song for sure. I love this song. Wait, hold on.
Sure.
I read that wrong. I'm sorry. No, it actually says Pride in the Name of Love is my number one song, of course.
That makes
what else?
More sense.
What else was it going to be? I mean, who doesn't like a good MLK song? This is a fantastic one. I'm a sucker for these historical ones.
So it's Pride in the Name of Love and not the song that is literally called MLK.
No, but that almost made my honorables. That was down at the bottom. I just deleted it before we started on the air.
This is a better song, but
that is not really a song at all, but it is still, I enjoyed it. So it is what it is. It was in consideration, but this is just a great one. I do say, looking at this now, it makes me feel a little guilty that I picked like their American Tragedy song over their Irish Tragedy song at number 2. Maybe that just speaks to me as an American, but this is just a great song. I mean, it's top. This is a classic. I don't know what to say about it. It's just a classic.
I mean, what specifically do you like about it?
Well, for starters, they couldn't take his pride. Okay, so there's that.
I've heard that.
It's just, I don't know. It's just a good one. Like, I feel like it's just rock solid. I don't know what to say about this other than Bono hits where he's supposed to hit. The music hits where it's supposed to hit. The like emotional emphasis hits where it's supposed to hit for the subject they're dealing with. And I don't, enjoy is the wrong word, but I obviously teach history, so this is up my alley as well. So
that's fair. I mean, it is a classic song.
It is, yeah.
It's not on my list, but
well, you have terrible taste. That's been established. All right. Well, what do you got? You got very slim chance here to pull off something to take the list versus Sunday Bloody Sunday being our top song. But what do you got?
My number one is a song that I think I mentioned before we started recording. When we very first discussed doing this topic, it immediately was in my mind, like, of course, that's my number one U2 song. Like, no question. And then over the course of the past week or so, like revisiting a lot of their songs and like really thinking about, which of their songs, have a special meaning for me. It, as of earlier today, was in the number 5 slot on my list. But the closer we got to recording, the more I just realized that to me, this really is the definitive U2 song.
And your wife reminded you it was your first dance song, guilted you into putting it number 1.
Our first dance song was not U2.
Okay, fair.
flavor. If Dave and I ever do a Ben Folds podcast, maybe we could talk about that.
Ooh, I would do a Ben Folds podcast.
That would be fun. I haven't even listened. Like there are a couple of his albums I haven't even listened to. Anyway, my number one.
Anyway,
All I can say when I think about this song is that I want to run. I want to hide. I want to tear down the walls. Hold me down. Anyway, it's Where the Streets Have No Name off of the Joshua Tree. My third and final song off that album. I just to me, like when I think of U2, like this is the song that just springs to mind. Just absolutely iconic opening. I mean, one of the best opening tracks of any album of all time. You get like a little bit of a synth, and then you just get that iconic delayed guitar from the Edge, and then the drums, and it just like is immediately just this like sweeping epic song. Really the thing that secured it for me in the number one spot though is just it as a live song. Like if you go to a U2 concert, the thing that sticks in my mind, I think it was actually the second time I saw them, they put this at the end of the show. And like the entire arena, it just goes black. And then all of a sudden through the darkness, you just hear those guitar notes like cutting through. And it just like, just the energy like that just instantly goes throughout the entire arena is like not like anything I've ever experienced anywhere else. It's just incredible. I mean, the other thing is one thing that I revisited in the past couple days was U2's Super Bowl halftime show.
Okay.
And this song was basically the climax of that, where they actually used MLK, which as you said is like not really a song, but
okay.
Bono started like singing MLK, and they start scrolling the names of the people who died in the terrorist attack in 9/11. And then so it's like elegiac and like down, and then like the guitar kicks in and they go into Where the Streets Have No Name, and it's just like the ultimate song to like lift people up. Like it's just incredible. Like I'm not even a football fan. I'm not even a huge fan of patriotism. But like anytime I watch that performance, it just like destroys me. Like it's just incredibly powerful. And I mean every time I have heard this song live, it just is an amazing moment.
Never heard of it.
No.
No, I did. No. Well, so we have some interesting results here tonight then compared to our previous music podcasts, awarding our points based on position.
Enter Sandman is number one.
Yes. Our number 4 song overall is Bad. Our number 3 song and number 2 song tied with 13 points are With or Without You and Where the Streets Have No Name. And just edging it with 14 is Sunday Bloody Sunday. So that's a very close 1, 2, 3 right there.
That is really close.
Very close. There is no definitive Enter Sandman here to be had tonight.
It's true. Interesting. I mean,
those are 3. They're mega mainstream big ones.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too surprised that we had those, but I am surprised that there wasn't even more crossover.
Well, you hate MLK, so you didn't pick number 1. So.
I don't hate MLK. That's a great song. It's just not one of my favorite songs.
That's fair. Okay.
I mean, it's iconic, like again with the guitar intro and
yeah,
and the lyrical. I mean, it is very powerful when he early morning, April 4th, shot rings out in the Memphis sky.
I was just reminded online that's a he regrets that lyric because it happened afternoon.
I know, I've read that. I mean, it doesn't take away from the emotion of the song, though.
Well, you got to remember the time zone in Ireland too. It would have.
That's true. There you go.
Yeah, so maybe that's where he was at the time. that it happened. I don't know. So there's that. Yeah, well, did you make it through? Were you were worried about doing this one? So
It was
did it go
well
okay?
because you were purposely being a dick.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, so for the listener, the way that this happened is Cody proposed the idea of doing an episode discussing our top 10 U2 songs. For all the previous music episodes we've done, like they've all been bands that like all of the hosts like, are like fans of. So I assumed that that meant that Cody was a U2 fan. And then after we agreed to it and he started like doing his research, listening to the albums, he kept making comments about what torture it was and how terrible it was and how I should do a episode about the used as payback, even though it was his idea. So I mean, U2 is one of my favorite bands, so I was pretty nervous, leading up to this.
I mean, well, that is all true, dear listeners, but to justify my point as well, Songs of Experience, Songs of Innocence, No Line on the Horizon, Pop, Octung Baby, Zooropa,
Uh,
October, and boy, I picked no songs off of, and a lot of those I did not really enjoy. I'll be honest. So
that's crazy to
a
me.
few of
Yeah, you
a
said
few of the
so.
albums they just like I'm bound on, I'm gonna drown in this voice the whole album. That's what it is. They can do different music in the background, but it ain't ever gonna get loud or different. The whole album, like every song, I'm like, holy shit, this
So
is
it seems like you're just really hung up on the vocals.
well that the later albums were the songs themselves. Like there was just like if you looked at the energy of those songs, it's a flat line in a hospital. There's just nothing to them. I was like, they're gonna rock this one out. No, they're not.
Uh,
That's the end of it. And I really
so what?
expected. Didn't you
Oh,
say Octoon Baby was like one of
yeah,
their best? And
I think
I got
I
nothing
think
on that one.
Octung Baby is probably their best
What's
album.
off that one? I got to click on this because
One,
in that one I didn't like as much as I thought
even
I was
better than
going
the real
to.
thing.
I don't even know which one that
Mysterious
is.
Ways,
Oh, that was in contention for a while.
Until the End of the World, which almost made my list.
This can't be the actual track listing, can it?
What?
Does it have 3 versions of one on the actual album?
No, that must be like an anniversary version or something.
Okay. Oh, here it is down here. Original version. I see.
You got Zoo Station, even better than the real thing. One, Until the End of the World. Who's gonna ride your wild horses? So Cruel, The Fly,
I mean,
Mysterious
Mysterious
Ways.
Ways and one, I guess, are the 2 I know on
Try
there.
to throw your arms around the world. Ultraviolet, Acrobat, Love is Blindness.
Didn't do it for me.
A lot of good edge guitar work on that album.
Now, so total tally for me here while we're still talking here. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 of my 13 were songs I really knew before we started, which is
Wow.
still pretty good. 6 if you count All Because of You, which I had totally forgotten was a real song. So there's that as well. But and 1, 2, 3, 4 songs that were 2000 or later, which is I was surprised by that. So
Yeah, that's pretty good.
2000 and 2004, those albums. What else you got? Anything else?
No. So would you say Joshua Tree is your favorite U2 album?
Uh, it didn't feel like it, honestly. Um, I guess that has 3 that I picked off of it.
Well, I mean, like I said, my thing with that, I mean, it's an amazing album, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
but I do feel like it's very front loaded. Like I think the first 5 songs are just dynamite, and then after that it's kind of more mixed.
I think I feel like All That You Can't Leave Behind had a few too, which I was really surprised with. Oh, my wife also wanted me to mention another one of their band sins was that they preloaded their album on all the iPhones back in the day.
All right, so here's the thing.
I tried to defend it by saying, listen, Apple made that deal. So there it is.
Apple made that deal. It's a free album. No one's making you listen to it. Like, I never understood the controversy about that.
Yeah. I mean, this is a pretty solid album too. All That You Can't Leave Behind. The first 6 are all songs I had on my 27.
Yeah, I mean, that is a really good one.
What's the one? Not Elevation. Sweetest Thing. That's the song I was thinking of where they like pop up there. Sweetest Thing.
Yeah. Oh, well, the sweetest thing. Oh,
What's
Elevation is Wow, how did I not think of Elevation earlier?
Yeah,
I had the
consider
like
that
I
one
had
too.
the like main guitar part from Elevation stuck in my head earlier, and for some reason I couldn't place it.
Maybe I should have you do top 10 songs by 30 Seconds to Mars instead. That seems more up your alley, believe it or not.
I refuse. No, I refuse on the grounds that Jared Leto is a creeper, and I will not fuck with anyone who is an abuser. So
I have no comeback to that because I'm not entirely sure the news story you're referring to.
there have been a few.
Okay. Well, there's that then.
So
Well, I guess we're sticking with Lincoln Park for you then.
more like Stinking Park, am I right?
I mean, you may think so, but I'd still like to hear what you think the best ones are. I think this is really fascinating to pick a band you don't know a lot of, or even
I
that you dislike.
actually saw Lincoln Park. I saw part of a Lincoln Park live set one time.
See, I haven't even done that.
It was
Never will know.
terrible. I wanted to gouge my eardrums out.
Well, I say a lot of this because I'm especially curious what you would think of their final album.
Hmm. I mean, like I said, I will think about it. I mean, I feel like I'm in the minority of people I know as far as not being a Lincoln Park fan. So
Yeah.
I would assume there must be something there.
Yeah. Um, this is going to probably drop in September, but I want to give a shout out preview here to October, where Friends
Ooh.
Occasionally Not Disagreeing is attempting to look at maybe some classic horror films and horror icons, and possibly some scary video games, and maybe some sort of
Spooky.
a scary supernatural true crime type thing too. So we got a fun
Ooh.
October coming up here if all goes according to plan. So there's that to look forward to as well.
I'm
Ooh.
so excited for to not be on anything horror related.
I mean, I know you don't like scary movies. Scary video games?
It
You've
depends on how scary.
you've played some.
I mean, I like the Residence Evils, but
I feel like through time Resident Evil has kind of become like 33 to 50% of that genre, to be honest.
that's true.
Everything else has kind of faded in and out.
I mean, like 4 through 6 were barely even horror. They're more
Yeah.
action focused, and then 7 kind of brought it back.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But
That's a good
anyway, I
point.
mean, we'll talk about it.
All right, there you go. We got Joe for horror and Lincoln Park, folks. Very exciting.
Yeah, I like horrors in Lincoln Park. I mean, horror. What? What? Oh no, Cody just had a thought.
I think he just agreed to it. I'm going to check his words when we rewatch this. But
Oh,
sweetest thing.
check the tape.
Check the tape.
Don't wait for the translation.
Angel of Harlem.
Anyway, I think
Desire.
this has been another episode of Friends Occasionally. I disagree.
Was that the song?
Friends.
It sounds like a creaky wheel.
I don't. I can't believe the friends today. Is that
Oh,
offensive? Is it offensive if we call up that song?
no, I don't know. No, maybe I don't know.
I can't close my eyes and make them occasionally not disagree.
Dave's not here, so it's not offensive. So that's fine.
That's fair.
We can do that. Friends occasionally not disagreeing.
Yeah. Click.
Don't listen to U2 after 2004.
Cody's wrong. They still rock.
But not really.
Damn it.
See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.